Yodi around this one right here, and with just this one right here, what you got with the artist and a minute freestyle. You got the in a minute freestyle, especially with the artist and everything else. But you know how I'm seeing this whole thing right here coming through. But the artist, in a minute, and then he got the in a minute, so we got something, you know, in a minute type of visual thing, coming through this one, especially with the whole SK, and the artist. So, you know, and everything else, his the delusional one coming through, and he got the in the minute. So he got something, real, real something in the writing, something coming through this, in a minute, but everything else, I slop this.
Yo, YBH.
I be with my goons, whipping in this coupe. Shorty kinda bad, pop up peekaboo. Ops they known for running, they ain't bulletproof. How can we lose when we the real goons? They can see me in a goofer, pull up at my goons, whipping in this coupe. Shorty kinda bad, pop up peekaboo. Ops they known for running, they ain't bulletproof. How can we lose when we the real goons? They can see me in
And that's how we coming to, hey, how can we lose when we know we the real goons? Hey, especially with the whole thing, like, this is something, else, like something else. This one has another loose to it, another loose screw to it, like, especially, the loose screws and the loose ends and everything else, like it just comes in all type of stuff, especially how the whole thing, like this is a loose, this a loose goon, loose screw and everything else, especially how everything else, benefits, like hey, benefits off of everything else.
the real goons, they can see in this coupe. Shorty kinda bad, pop up peekaboo. Ops they known for running, they ain't bulletproof. How can we lose when we the real goons? They can see me in a goofer, pull up at like I don't know her. Why I think we keep a poker, stepping nigga ain't scared. They eat you if you show fair, swear this life it ain't fair. Getting lit, don't need no lighter, stepping hard, we drip designer. Love for all my bros, tell my niggas that we gon' blow. Wonder what it'd be if I dropped only Allah knows. I wanna put my mama flies around the whole globe. They can be out here trying to get shot in pure snow. Run up on my goons, then we show you how the smoke feels. Still up in the field, that my nigga keep the pool close. Got demons round me, they won't let go. Pussy niggas, they don't want smoke. Still up.
Oh, and the whole, like, hey, especially the way he's just like running through these too. He's running through these, just running through these lyrics too, and the way he's just running laps too through every composure thing too. Like he's just putting the whole thing to it. Like he just setting a factory thing to it. Like he said, everything else. How can the whole thing cruise when it's just some screws, and especially how he it's like you always got your all kinds of econs, and especially with that ego running through, like you got your own type of ego, your own type of stuff going on, like you got your own path, and they got their own path, so especially how everything else is cooped up and just branched up.
Close. Got demons round me, they won't let go. Pussy niggas, they don't want smoke. Niggas are pretending, gripping on these weapons. Missing all my niggas that are sitting in detention. Club, there's no security, no safety on our weapons. And if I ever told you that I love you, then I meant it. I can never watch my brothers bleed, I catch your emin. And we be going hard until we make it out of the trenches. Praying my last, gonna laugh for my protection. And if I die young, then I'm dying as a legend. They see my brother shining, now these niggas envy. The ops are always hiding, I can never let them get me. My brothers from the slide, they drilling some Fendi. My brothers on the papers, as we make it on the telly. You asking for a favor, they gon' ask you for the pass fee. They talking on the net, but I can't let these niggas mad me. They touch one of my dogs and all my drillers doing mad thing. Yo bitch, she wanna fuck, cause she see me getting bands in. Jumped up in this music from the start, I'm going all in. Step up in the party and that shit got kinda awkward. Got it, don't you worry, cause got it every moment. My drillers never let these niggas touch me, every car jumped up in this music from the
Hey, the whole thing, like, hey, he letting us know where the whole thing is going. Like, hey, jumped into the party, it got a kind of awkward. Like, you gotta keep that thing, pronounced to me. You gotta keep it just on a revolt. Like, you just gotta keep it. You just gotta keep it. You can't keep it revoked. Where it's just everything is just revolt. You gotta keep it on a some next level type of gen. It's like, especially with the whole thing coming through, like, and him having his whole thing, his whole path, like his path, the path and the Gen X is wild, to see what he actually got going, cause it's the way he's just flowing through things and the way he's, he's speaking, he got, hey, he's speaking, like, he's speaking through the whole thing, like the rhymes and everything else.
up in this music from the start, I'm going all in. Step up in the party and that shit got kinda awkward. Got it, don't you worry, cause got it every moment. My drillers never let these niggas touch me, I ain't joking. I be with my goons, whipping in this coupe. Shorty kinda big, pop up peekaboo. Pops they known for running, they ain't bulletproof. Shorty kinda big, pop up peekaboo. Pops they
Ooh, what do you say? Shorty kind of belt? Hey, that's something else. Hey, that's something else. Pop out, pick a boo. Ooh, pop out, pick a boo. Like, hey, especially with the whole thing.
known for running, they ain't bulletproof. How can we lose when we the real goons? They can see me in a gopher, pull up like I don't know her. Why think we keep a poker? Stepping nigga ain't scared. The EU if you show fair, swear this life it ain't fair. Getting lit, don't need no lighter, stepping hard, we drip designer. Love for all my bros, told my niggas that we gon' blow. Wonder what it'd be if I dropped only Allah knows. I wanna put my mama flights around the whole globe. They can be out here trying to get shot in pure snow.
Hey, with this one though coming into it, and with the whole thing, especially how he was just, refusing it. He was refusing it, but he had it on the skis, on the skis and everything else. But in a minute, it been in a minute. Hey, it been a minute too, since the whole thing, since how everything else been, slowsting and glitching through. But in a minute, especially with SkTheArtist, and everything else. But you got this whole thing right here. But make sure you guys definitely tune in with this one right here. Make sure you guys definitely, go tune in and everything else. But especially in a minute, especially the minute one, like it been a minute, it has been a minute, especially especially with how the whole thing goes. Like this one right here, it had the lyrics and everything else was she, but make sure you guys definitely tune in with this one right here. Make sure you guys definitely like, comment, everything goes, subscribe, and how this whole thing went. Like this whole thing was of Mystic, of Mystic thing coming through it, especially with the whole thing. But hey, how he was just slashing through, but with this one right here,